Hey everybody, it's Chris Kirkpatrick with Life 180, and I'm here in the Better Wealth studios with my buddy and CEO of Better Wealth, Caleb Williams.
It's good to be here, man.
It's good to be here. I feel like I always love coming up here. So anyway, got an interesting story for everybody. So here's the deal. The bottom line is auto repossessions in December are up 400%. Now, a lot of people are asking me, where did I get that information from? And I got an interesting story for you. So here's the bottom line. For me, if whether you know this or not, I've done some videos on this. I am a really passionate outdoors camping, jeeping, overlanding.
One of my first experiences with you is going off-roading with your Jeep.
Yeah.
And it was like your favorite child, the ones that you had. I'll just put it that way.
Listen, outside of my family, my Jeep is my love.
Yeah.
And it's not the Jeep. Like I always tell people, I'm really not the person who cares about physical things like items to buy and own. I love my Jeep and I love my trailer simply because of what it allows me and my family to do. And so let me tell you this story. So October, I received a phone call from my loan company that I have my Jeep through. And the loan company said, we're going to come repossess your Jeep. And I said, whoa. And they said, you're 4 months behind on your payment. And I said, there's no way. I've made every payment. I'm not late. While I was on the phone with them, I went online, I checked my bank statements, and sure enough, I looked and just confirmed for 4 months in a row, the money had come out. So I was like, I don't know what your problem is, but like, I see all the transactions. I even had confirmation emails from the bank saying, thank you for making the payments. So they said, well, the burden of proof is on you. We don't have record of it. You have to send us a fax with the trace numbers and all these different things so they could track down the payments. That's what they wanted. And so I had to go spend hours talking to my banker, getting the banker to compile the information, get the trace numbers found out, put them on a sheet, fax it to, they give us a fax number. She faxed it over. That was that. That was the end of October. So flash forward, in the beginning of November, my father-in-law was actually diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And I was in the hospital with him. And things are going better for him now. It's still what it is, but like it's been a better outcome than we expected to this point in time, which is fantastic and just a blessing. But in the moment, obviously you can imagine, like I was feeling like totally just in that world. I get a phone call and it was the bank. It was my loan company saying, this is about 10 days after the fact, by the way, saying, we're going to come repossess your Jeep if you don't make these payments. And I'm like, my head just about exploded because I was like, I don't understand. We had this long conversation. I went to the banker. They sent you the faxes, like all this stuff. And at the end of the day, I was like, listen, I'm in the hospital. I can't deal with this right now. I've paid you everything. Let me get my banker on the line. So I called the banker. The banker got on the phone with them. And I was like, can you guys just kind of square this up? Because whatever, you're handling it. Am I good to go? I'm like, I got to deal with this. And they said, yes, go ahead. Like it's fine. That was the end I heard of it. Like I had no phone calls, no nothing. So all of a sudden, Happy New Year. It was December 31st. And I go out and my wife takes the kids for a walk to the playground. And I had just put my daughter, my youngest, to sleep. And I go downstairs to grab something out of my Jeep. And it was gone. And so I called my wife being like, hey, you took the Jeep to the park with the kids. Like I need to get, I think it was my computer that was in the Jeep. I need to get my computer out of the Jeep. And no, it wasn't my computer because it would have been gone. It was something else. It doesn't matter. I need to get something out of the Jeep. And she's like, I don't have your Jeep. And I'm like, you're kidding me. Somebody stole my Jeep. Like it took me a while because I hadn't heard, it would be out of sight, out of mind, like for over a month and a half at this point in time. And so it took me a minute. And so like, I start kind of going around thinking about like, who am I going to call about reporting? And so then all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if that got resolved. And so I went into my online bank for my banking at the institution I had my loan through, and they had my account closed down, and it was insane. And so, of course, it's after hours. I couldn't get a hold of them, and I'm freaking out. And so that's all to say, like, it was kind of a messed up situation. Long story short, they finally ended up, after repossessing my car, putting it on a flatbed, taking it away, my Jeep, my baby, like basically my fourth child, take it out of my driveway, put it on a flatbed, bring it away to some impound lot in downtown Phoenix. Like it was mind blowing to me that this kind of happened. And so we finally, I got on the phone with them. They kind of, we went through over hours doing like reconciliation.
You got email.
Oh my gosh.
Like you paid, you were never late.
No,
they just did not have the ability to track, like
for some. Oh, and it gets kind of worse. Like, just to kind of jump ahead, and I'll come back to like the important part of the story. Even after I got the Jeep back and then went back into the portal and made my payment, it still didn't register. Like, so there's something broken with their system. And it took me 3 hours on the phone with them after the fact, after I got the Jeep back, after I was like redealing with this all, to like figure out the problem. And honestly, they've credited me the money, but I'm still dealing with this. Like, I don't know, like, if they're going to fix their system or what. Like, so what I have to do now is just manually go in and make sure it's like handled. Otherwise, I can't just put my payments on autopilot right now. Otherwise, God knows what will happen. They'll take my Jeep again. Right. So here's the crazy part. Like, it's funny because, well, it was maddeningly infuriating, right? Like, I mean, like, just because the worst part was it happened on a holiday. So like, I couldn't call them on New Year's. They were closed, it was.
I remember when you were telling me this, you're like, you would never believe what happened. And when you're like, my Jeep got repossessed, and that's all you said, I was like, what in the world? Like that, like, how? What in the world? And so like, only you would get the story. But
so it's crazy because, like, so I go down, I finally, get it released from the repossession, and they cover everything, whatever. I go down and I'm talking to this guy who, and it ended up being actually, ironically, a really awesome experience. Make lemonade out of lemons, right?
That's right.
And so I took an Uber and I get dropped off at the impound lot, and there's like nobody there, which is weird. And all of a sudden this guy pulls up in a big, like 3,500 dually pickup truck kind of thing. And it all customized to be like this repossession machine. Like, you can just back in and like pull cars out. And it was pretty crazy. Like $150,000 pickup with like towing specialty like apparatuses on it. And so what ended up happening, because me and the nature of what I do, is like, I start talking to him about his business. I start talking to him about like the world, and like, because he was like, hey man, nice Jeep, because I've got a lot of accessories and everything on the Jeep, and like it's pretty built up and stuff. And so he's asking me like, should he get one, whatever. We start talking, and I start kind of telling him my story. He's like, man, you'd be, side note, just for fun, because I think everybody will be entertained by this story. He goes, man, you would be amazed the crazy stuff that I see with the repossessions. He goes, I had to repossess a guy's car 6 months ago because he paid it off in full, but there was one $27 late payment, and the bank told him that he had to pay it. Otherwise, the loan wasn't paid off. He told him basically to stick it where the sun don't shine. And then a month later, they repossessed his car over $27. And he's like, I knew it. Like, the banker physically called me and was like, we're going to get this guy just in principle. And it was just like a spite repossession. And he's like, I have no choice. I have to do it. Like, so just crazy things. Like, it's like this almost Wild West kind of scenario. You know what I mean? But for me, I'm talking to him. I just thought everybody would enjoy that craziness. And kind of how that world works, which is almost a little bit scary that it can be done that way, in a way. But what he ended up telling me is I started asking him about like the industry, like, how does it work? How do you get your repossessions, whatever. And so what he did is he showed me this app on his phone, and it pinged up, like, if you go to Zillow and you just want to look like at every house on the market kind of thing, or you look at every house for sale and you don't put the parameters, there's like houses scattered everywhere.
Well, I'm curious how do they find your Jeep? Do they just know where you live?
So no, they know where you live. B, they have like scanning systems on their cars. So if I drove by somewhere, they could have scanned my car. I don't know. Like, he didn't tell me how he found mine, because he didn't get into the details, because he literally is repossessing hundreds and hundreds of cars. He said he's repossessing 10 cars a day right now. Like, that's just him in his unit, right? And so he showed me this map, and it was a map of like just dots, like all over, like pins, drop pins all over the place. And I'm like, what are those? He goes, those are all cars that need to be like locations of addresses of cars that need to be repossessed. And I'm like, that seems like a lot. Like that's pretty out of control. Yeah. It was mind blowing to me. He's like, literally, there are thousands of cars right now.
It's mind blowing.
Thousands. So there's a couple things that happen. So this, I said, well, business must be good for you. And he goes, actually, repossessions in December were up 400%.
400%.
400%. And he expects it to be worse in January, right? So, and you think about that and you think about why. It's like when the financial crisis happened, or I guess not financial crisis, but COVID. It was a financial crisis for a while. The market crashed for a little while, and then stimulus money and nobody having to pay their bills and all that stuff kind of came into the mix. And you know, everybody that wanted to or needed to took 3 months of forbearance on their auto loans. And so then when you look at, say they started that in May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, that's 4 months out. That's repossession time. Like, it's not coincidence. Like, it's pretty simple math. And so I think January is going to be worse. I think February is going to be worse. I think it's just kind of like the start of something. And it's a very big indicator of where things are going.
And that's what, when we were talking, I was like, Chris, you know what this is saying? Like, this is an indicator. If people aren't making their auto payments, that's like,
they're not going to make their mortgage payments either when it comes to. Yeah. It's really ugly. Like student loans, mortgage payments, auto payments, credit card payments, like all these different things. Credit card payments, you can work with your companies a little more. They're a little more flexible because they're just raking you over the coals when it comes to the interest rates, and they have a little more flexibility. Because it's unstructured, and quite frankly, you as a credit card borrower, or like the person who's using the credit card, it's an unsecured debt, right? So they don't really have a choice but to work with you. When you have securitized debt, they're going to come grab it. Like, they're just going to reclaim their property, and it's happening in droves right now. And so, you know, what I would really encourage people to think about is the fact that, you know, this is happening. You know, like my story is kind of a funny and infuriating story all at the same time. It's resolved mostly once the bank fixes their system. But as far as everything else goes, it's resolved. And Caleb thought I should share it. It was pretty funny. But even though my situation is resolved, like what I learned and what is to come from this, like if you think about it, I did some research, and this is what I was trying to think. I was losing my train of thought for a second. I did some research, and did you know that right now in 2020, and this is like almost a statistic that was incomprehensible to me. First of all, there's two things that I think lead to this. Is that, did you know that only 8% of loans, let me say it a different way, 92% of loans for automobiles right now are no income disclosure.
Really?
Meaning, yep. So you don't have to prove income. If you had a 700 credit score in 2017, 18, and 19, you could just go in to most auto dealerships if you had a 700 credit score and claim an income and not have to prove your income, and you'd get a loan. That's no different than the crisis that happened with the mortgage crisis back when they were doing the ninja loans, no income, no job, no assets. Right? Yeah. You remember those?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's no different, but they're doing it with a depreciating asset, right? Like, so that's even worse. And so that's what was happening. Did you know that right now, for every 2.6 cars on the road, one repossession is happening?
For every 2.6.
Almost 1 in 3 cars are being repossessed. Just no, more than 1 in 3 cars are being repossessed.
Wow. I did not know that.
That's insane. That's
where do you find that info?
I just Google search it.
Wow.
Yeah. I did a pretty deep Google search and went to, I can't remember what site I ended up finding that on, but I was, you know, obviously my curiosity after my conversation with him was sparked. And that's a scary number if you think about it. Like, and so what does that do? So like, okay, so let's pivot this conversation a little bit and talk about opportunity, right? Because when there's other people's troubles,
what is this? So the 400%, if repossessions are up 400%, what's that an indicator of? Chris and I would say that there's going to be bad things happening in the future. I think, look back at 2007, 2008 when this stuff was happening. It's an indication that well, the market's on an all-time high, depending on when you're watching this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everything's so good. Like, people are out of jobs. People are not making their payments. People don't like, it's a little bit frightening.
It's a
And
whole lot frightening.
this is just a early indicator that something could happen in the future. And when there's fear, there's a lot of opportunity.
Well, I would say it's not an indicator that something could happen. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
At this, like, listen, you don't go through the greatest pandemic the world has ever seen,
Yeah.
and not feel it financially. Like, anybody that's living in this mental bubble, thinking that things are okay, that it makes sense that the market's at an all-time high, that real estate prices are where they are, and everything's good. Nobody's got, like, unemployment's high, debt is high, everything is inverse of what it should be. Yet somehow we are where we are, and eventually that we're going to have to take our medicine, and it's going to be challenging. There's going to be hard times with it. And so what I would say to that, though, is there's opportunity in that. Like, if you think about it, like, maybe you're somebody who's really, like, gifted when it comes to cars, right?
Yep.
If the auto loan, or if the foreclosure or repossessions, that's the word, are happening at the rate at which they are, that means all the cars, I mean, the auto companies have seen just a heyday in auto sales. And it's not a coincidence at the, undocumented loans that are happening. And it's not a coincidence at the rate of repossession that's happening right now. And what's that going to lead to? That's going to lead to auctions of cars, good cars, low mileage, newer cars being flooded into these auctions. So what's that going to do? That's going to drop the supply demand of that, is going to just drop the secondary market for automobiles. So, like, whether you're looking to buy a car for yourself, find a friend that's got an auction license, or go to one of those auctions. Like, you can get them. Like, and it's just, sadly, the people that suffer, like, they've already suffered. You just go, like, do what you got to do for you at this point in time. Like, figure out, like, this is where I kind of say, if you watch the Life 180 pyramid video, it's like, people structure their life in a certain way, and most people have their financial pyramid, their financial life kind of structured upside down. That forces them to make bad financial decisions in times of hardship. In return, people that have it structured properly creates more opportunity, where they can buy higher valued assets at discounted prices. And it's not like those things are discounted for super long. You got a window of time where, if you're liquid and if you're stable, you can go get it, whether it's real estate, whether it's a car, whether it's a business, whether it's, any kind of other asset, you could do that. And this is just kind of one example. And I think, the auto loan repossession kind of rate right now, the repossessions being up 400%. And I think it's going to be worse in January, probably worse in February. And if you look at that as an indicator, and you look at student loans, although Biden just kicked that down the road a little bit more, it was supposed to be the end of January when that expired, and now it's going out a little further. But you look at the mortgage thing. I mean, that's coming right up. Everybody got a year. If you needed 12 months of forbearance with your mortgage, that's going to be coming around in June, right? So that tells me, and I just did a video on this, like, why I think there's going to be a correction in at the end of 2021 here, or the beginning of 2022, if Biden does a little something about it, or they create different stimulus packages. But I think it's going to be ugly. I think we're coming into some ugly times. So what I would encourage you, no matter what, is really think about, like, what is the cause of this? More importantly, what can you do about it, right? Like, I always say, like, create a financial strategy for yourself that will make sure your business is protected, that your revenue stream is protected, that you have enough money put aside. People always call me crazy for saying I think you have to have 2 years of income in a safe account saved, because I think you need a year for protection. I think you need a year for opportunity. And whatever that looks like for you, there will be a lot of opportunity created through this crisis that is going to come. Like, I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when. I'm not going to be, surprised if it gets pushed back a little bit, but it's going to happen. And so make sure you do everything you can to be in a position to thrive in that. Even if you can't get to the 2-year thing, like, whatever you can get liquid and accessible, keep it safe. And if you can get a great return on that in some way, you'll be putting your family in a much better position and your business in a much better position.
I love it, man.
So awesome. Well, thanks for,
This, I think there's a lot to be learned, and thank you for sharing your story.
Oh yeah.
And
it's a blast.
Watch out for what's to come.
You got it. All right, guys, have a blessed, inspirational day. I hope that helped. And by the way, if you love this video, click the subscribe button, hit that bell. I'm always horrible at reminding people to do that. I'm such a bad YouTuber. But hit that bell. That way you get notified every time we put out new videos. Hopefully this served you in some way, gave you some insight. If you need to reach out for anything, feel free. You can click on the links below in the description, and we will be happy to have a conversation. Have a blessed, inspirational day. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.